Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our next episode of the What's Halperning podcast. I'm Trevor Halpern, and today I'm joined by none other than the man with two names, but people also just refer to him as one name, which is Al Fuentes, the two names. Al, thank you so much for joining us. Al is an incredible human being. He is a mental coach by trade. He is someone who has taken an interest in me and Beth and has helped us to progress down a journey of kind of self and finding who we are on these universal kind of cosmic journeys. So a lot of people have heard about you. A lot of people know you. You know a lot of people. The effect that you've had on me and my family, man, it's unreal. The ability that you have to get inside someone's head and see what helps them tick and to help them for themselves see that and find that and grow into it it's extraordinary. And it's a gift that you share and you share freely, and you've built a wonderful life around it, man. And I am so honored to have you in my life. And I'm so honored to have you here today. I'm so honored to share whatever we're going to share, man. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, man, that's all really good. I really appreciate that. It feels so good to be honored in that way. And I've had to learn how to receive all that because it's not always come easy. So it's really great to hear.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. And thank you, by the way, for switching sides, being willing to switch sides so I could have my good side on camera. Like, it's just so nice. Danny's been really accommodating behind the camera, just allowing, color tones and changing.
We need you to shine. Your good side, my good side. Who knew that they just like lined up? Well, man, your story, over the years, I've gotten to know you. I've gotten to know kind of where you come from and to a certain extent how you've arrived where you've arrived. But man, I know there's so much more. Like, one of the things that was funny, I was thinking about this earlier before you got here. And I was thinking in those situations when Beth and I tell people, like, whatever, through the course of conversation, over dinner or whatever, if there's a point where it gets brought up that we work with a mental coach, sometimes people, you almost get the golden retriever. They're like, what's that? So I suspect that you get that a ton when you're talking to people, or if people are trying to figure you out, or you introduce, who you are and what you do. Explain, if you would, in your words, what it is that you do.
Yeah, it's really pretty simple. When I started and I kind of dubbed myself a mental coach, I really wanted to separate myself. This was 14 plus years ago that I started doing this. And so that wasn't a real term back then. And if it was very rarely used because I had never heard it. And so I'm not the creator of it, but I assume it was very rarely used. And so I had to really back that up with an explanation, because the minute I say mental coach, a life coach, I'm like, no, not a life coach. And in the beginning, I was kind of like a little like, oh, that stings. I'm not a life coach. Because at that time, there was a lot of life coaches coming in, and that could be anything and everything. And there's nothing wrong with life coaches. I think they're very beautiful people. It was more of what I was doing different from that. And what I would say that is specifically is I would call myself a personal trainer for the brain. And much like you'd have a personal trainer for the body who would assess you, figure out what your physical limitations are, strengths are, your goals, desires, and then they would design a workout based on that. I do that for the brain. We sit, we understand kind of your mental limitations, what's working, what's not, what your goals are, and then we design a mental workout that directly counters what's going on, not in the front of your brain, but the back of your brain. See, the front of your brain just delivers it all, but the back of your brain is where it kind of all is programmed. And so using a lot of science, theta and delta frequencies, and being able to tap into them through like active visualization or deliberate meditation, as I would call it, it's much different than anything else that I've seen out there. And so when I started doing it, I really got to watch people do a workout, and every morning you put in your headphones, you listen to the guided visualization, you start to train your brain to fire in a way you want it to fire and release old programming. And for me growing up, I knew, and most people come in knowing that they've got all kinds of things that they'd love to change. They just don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be that physical activity that you can do to really reconstruct your brain, change its programming. And so that's what I felt initially separated me. That's the basic thing. I'm just a personal trainer for the brain, and that
Mm-hmm.
would be that. And it's a lot of fun because, one, it puts you in the driver's seat of your life. Two, it also puts it on you to make the change, and because it can't be me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my choice, it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so it creates a lot of fun. I get to have a lot of fun in my sessions. Yesterday I incorporated Snoop Dogg into a session. Today I incorporated just being okay shitting yourself into a visualization.
We've had underwear in my in my sessions. Yeah.
So imagine having a visualization, and you would think meditation visualization could be this very mystical thing. None of this is like that. It's real life stuff. It's fun stuff. It's funny stuff. And because we're humans, we're doing the best we can, and we're just trying to manage the human construct while we step into our bigger selves. And that's what I do.
You know what's so interesting about the way there was a phrase that like caught me. You're a mental coach, but you consider the practice physical,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought of the visualization I did before I came in here. You caught me doing it. Snapped a picture of it. Highly physical,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't thought of it as a physical exercise before. So it's physically exercising the brain. It's applying physicality to it. And it really is, when I think about what I did, the energy that goes into the brain and the energy that goes into the breathing, there is a physicality to it. And there's a practice to it. And if you're out of practice, your breath isn't as good, that you can't slip into that zone as quickly. So it's really interesting. And it does put it into the context of coach. You know, hey, Shaquille O'Neal's bricking free throws. What's going to happen? He's going to get a free throw coach, and he's going to go through it. Tiger Woods is slicing. He's going to get a swing coach. I can't get over certain mental humps, or I know there are things that I want to get straightened out mentally or work through in my life, and kind of combine the body, mind, spirit, finance things. So it's like, okay, you work through it, and it gives you, I've always thought of them as mental exercises to do it, but it makes so much sense because it is a training. It is a building of that muscle and the muscle repetition of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool, man. I haven't thought of it like that.
Yeah, and it really is fun. And I'm an old athlete, so for me, it had to be something visceral. It had to be something that I could get my hands on, so to speak, and do a physical activity, because this all touchy-feely stuff just wasn't doing it for me. And it's just not enough for most people, especially when we're trying to counter the craziness of the front brain. So yeah, it's got to be that level.
You know, it's funny because you talk about like the touchy-feely, and I think that's where people, when you talk about mental coach or whatever, you know, it slides into the idea of therapies and whatever. And I don't even know how you classify it or whatnot, but it's not the like, and how did that make you feel? You know, like we are actively in a discussion, and like, there was one, it was our first session. We'd already known each other a little bit, and there was something that came up, and I was like talking about how there was something with my kids. I was nervous for them. We were getting them started late in softball, and I was like, man, I'm just kind of afraid they're going to get eaten up. They're like a couple weeks behind and whatever. You're like, cool, so you don't believe in your kids? And I was like, that's not what I said. You're like, that's what you said. And then we started peeling it back, and I was challenging you on it. You challenged me back on it. And then by the end, I'm like, you're right, man. I need to go the other way. I need to like believe in them and boost them up instead of, you know, drop them off and be like, it's going to be okay. Like, drop them off and be like, you're going to do great, and bop, 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 bop. And like, just those little things just help. That may have changed my kid's life. You know what I mean? I'm sending them off pumped up instead of sending them off feeling my fear for them, even though I'm saying the right words. So it's that. It's like you have the ability to, through conversation, just make us think about things a little bit differently and allow us to come to the conclusion instead of like, it's not sobby and soppy. And sometimes it gets there, right? I mean, sometimes we'll tap into something that is meaningful, and I mean, it's all meaningful, but like hits that vein,
that nerve almost.
Yeah. But that's cool too. Like, you know, you almost have to be ready for that though, right? I'm sure you've had people that have started that may not have been ready, or may not have been willing to go to those spaces. And I think that's the hump that I had to get over. I don't know if you recall our first sesh, you sent a text out to me and Beth, and it was the night before, and she was going at like 8:30. I was going at 10 or something like that. And you're like, you guys ready? And I was like, nope. And you're like, what, why not? I'm like, man, I'm nervous. I'm scared. And you're like, nothing to be scared about. We're just going to have a conversation. But what I was scared about was that where we were going to go and those dark places in my brain that I knew were there, that when we shined light in there, that there was going to be a big monster. And I don't even know what I was afraid of, right? But then when we got there, those things ended up not being monsters. They ended up being like little troll dolls. And I've been like, giggle at them and pet them and send them on their way. And so there's so much there. I think there's fear involved with people connecting to the parts of their brain that something tells them they shouldn't connect to. And I think getting over that is an important phase and an important stage for people in human growth. If you can't see what's really hanging out in there, you don't fully know yourself.
That's true. And there is that dynamic in the brain and the fears and stuff like that. But for anyone who's listening, or really just the simple construct that can be shared to anyone, is that this humanness is a very simple and understandable thing. It is not complicated. All of us, for however we got there, some people could have been homeless. I had a client that originally was born into homelessness and then had to figure that out along the way. I've had homemade apple pie families, and they're sitting in front of me, and they have some of the same characteristics or mental traits, if you will. And then everything between: serious traumas, pain, suffering. It doesn't really matter. The general human construct is some level of scarcity, fear, doubt, worry, some level of not feeling enough, some level of not being able to receive or even own your experience in however we've gotten there. And then whatever each person's special recipe to that is, and that's part of the conversation. But the reality is the humanness is not this big monster, much like you talked about, or even a kid with this irrational fear that there's a monster under the bed or in the closet or afraid to go to sleep in the dark. For us, it's like, it's all right. Like, but you think it's cute because, they have this imagination and they have this irrational fear, and it's okay. If we could be that accepting and that understanding of how the part of our mind, almost like the childlike mind that thinks there's this big monster there, and just look at from another side of us and go, it's okay that you feel that way. That's understandable, but it's just humanness, and it's not, and everybody's trying to do it, and everyone's doing it in their own way. And it's really okay. And that conversation and that acceptance, and a lot of the big part of the conversation, as you and I've shared, I'll share my stories. I'll share my humanness all the time. A lot of people do appreciate that because it's always in a frame of reference that, look, we're all in this. We're all just trying to find balance with the humanness. And however we get there or have gotten here in what those voices are of humanness, they're generally going to be the same with this, the special sauce on it based on a person's life. So whatever you're going through, brother, like, it's okay. Why that? Because we're human. And a fun analogy is that when we feel disappointed because we've shown up and like, man, I could have done that better, or oh, I failed, or oh, I just really wish I could be more like X, and every time I show up like Y. It's like, imagine a car on a hill that goes out of park and you're the only one around and you're trying to stop this car. Are you a horrible person because you can't stop it? No. Are you weak and feeble? No, it's a 3,000 pound plus car, and the chances aren't real great. Our humanness is a big thing that's had tons of momentum our entire life. And so the chances are it's going to affect us. And if we can just continue to understand that, work with it, be patient, we're just going to be all right. So we just have to take, you need fixed, you're wrong, this is a big deal, you have to even work on yourself, versus, hey, observe your humanness. Is it working for you? If not, take some steps back, breathe differently, see differently. If you want to think different, you can't just intellectually put yourself there. You got to take intellectual thought or wisdom and let your body experience it. That's where the physical part comes in, right? So it's that thing. And then every person And even you after the session, you're like, oh yeah, that was no big deal.
Yeah.
But more than that, it's more than our work together or even coaching. It's this life isn't that hard if we can break down all the complications and just go, humanness is what it is. Let's do our best we can to detach from whatever it's trying to tell us and program in, not just intellectually, but in our body, a feeling, an experience, a mindset that does work for us. And then when they kind of compete against each other, we just try to keep working on this one so that it wins more than this one.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
It's amazing because it's you think of the complexities of the human mind, and it's funny that you brought it up because I was thinking, man, at one point I was thinking there have got to be things in your world, just like, if you work at Circle K or a grocery store or do what I do, there are certain conversations and patterns that show up throughout the course of what I do. And so what you do, because it's scientific and we're all human, and like you said, it's relatively the same with nuance in there. You probably see the same stuff and you're able to go in there, and like you do, it's like kind of the rules for getting involved with Al, like you say, this is what we've got to do. And if you don't do it, it's not going to work because it's so repeated in patterns. So it's so interesting. We're all nuanced and we all think of ourselves as these highly, individualized beings, these pieces of biology that are just floating through space that are interconnected, but really I'm my own person. And really we're just a little blade of grass in the field of grass.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, we are all like little babies. If you could imagine a bunch of little babies all at that stage of learning how to walk, you throw 100 of them in a room. First of all, I really want to see that.
I was just thinking the same thing.
I would love to see that experiment just to watch them. But when you really look out in the world, you see us not as immature babies when it comes to behaviors. Well, maybe, but I'm really talking about emotional babies.
Mm-hmm.
We're all emotional babies, just trying to learn how to walk in this world emotionally, mentally. And physically, sure, we grow up, we get strong, we can do this, we hold a job, we pay mortgages. That's maturity on some level. Maybe I can handle a better conversation. Maybe I learned some bigger, fancier words,
mm-hmm.
and now I can be an intellect. And all that stuff is growth, maturity, wisdom, sure, on some level. But emotionally, we're all just a bunch of beautiful little babies learning how to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. It is all like that when people come to me, but it is fun to watch or see each person's kind of how they got there, and then just continue to unwind that programming based on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to be able to know a lot of that even when they don't share it, because that's the joy I have of being able to just see without them speaking.
Yeah. You talk not just today, but in general, you talk about humanness. Define that, whether you like wrap a bow around that. Is it the human condition? Go.
Sure. Humanness is a collective consciousness. We all know certain colors: black, red, orange, blue, based on what's been taught to us. Well, who taught them? The person before them. Who taught them? The person before them. Who decided this? Somebody at one point said, that's blue, that's red. And when you really start going down the rabbit hole, you're like, we're living in a world where everything is just made up. Somebody made up that's a can. This is called a microphone. You can trace it back to Greek, but then even that was made up, right? So all along the way, the human condition is just a collective consciousness based on a continued evolution of just the human mind. And overall, then there's big stories that come with that. Like money doesn't grow on trees. So many people have heard that.
Mm-hmm.
Pain is struggle, leaving the body, stuff like that.
Right.
Or even if you want to build character, then you have to go through the trenches, if you will. Things where it's like hard so you can have the gift.
Forged by fire.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's not it. Our framework of parents and what we have this expectation of what parents should be is all based on group conditioning. Just like the color blue is based on group conditioning. Mm-hmm. And now you could have an easy argument based on, is that blue or red? Well, you would argue that's blue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what shade? Some range of blue. No, I think it's red. We could fight about that right now. You would probably win. I mean, you're starting to get pretty jacked. So, but that's the thing. Why are you arguing that? Why do you feel so justified? because of a group consciousness that started with someone somewhere making it up
Mm-hmm.
and then passed it on. So humanness is that. It's just a collective consciousness of what we have perceived as good, bad, right, wrong, blue, red, parents should be this. We need to be this for children. We need to be this in society. This is a stop sign. This is a left turn. And so we're really growing up as servants to this greater consciousness, not beings of self. And that's how it works. And so what I do is I work with people on getting out of serving the collective consciousness and serving their own truth and their own self. And we still get to do that through the integration of life, because we don't then wipe out the color blue.
Right.
Like blue no longer exists. Call it whatever you want now.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying. It's still important to integrate into everyday human life. We just don't have to be a servant to it. We now honor and serve ourselves and then integrate even easier into the world.
Well, right. And then, depending on how you honor yourself, it may end up, in fact, serving the human collective as well, too. If you're inserted back into it, looking at it differently.
Sure. It's actually a universal law that if you honor yourself, you're in guaranteed honoring the world around you. But that honoring yourself isn't the human version. It's true self-love, self-connection, self through this mindful, intentional way of being.
Mm-hmm.
Not like it honors me to drink 35 drinks tonight because that's what I want. Well, first of all, that's definitely not honoring your body. I had one of those experiences
that you can remember.
that I can remember.
So the honoring of oneself. Let's go down that path. I think you defined it, pretty concisely there. But like, what does that truly mean? And is that different for each person, or is that patterned? Honoring yourself means this, this, and this.
Of course, everyone is going to have their own style to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the fundamentals of honoring yourself would have to break some human laws, human consciousness laws. Human consciousness laws are more like it's better to give than receive. So being selfless is our purpose, or to serve others is our way of life, and that's what we're meant to do as a human race.
Mm-hmm.
Those are a lot of, now, not everyone's heard them or believes in them, sure, that's fine. But then their version of honoring self can be very selfish. Like, screw the world, I'm just going to do whatever I want. You're still in humanness. It's just almost a fight against the other kind, but it's just a different kind of humanness. But then there's healthy selfishness or honoring self, and that is filling yourself up first, whole, full, and then only sharing what overflows from you. Because so many parents do this naturally. They're so giving to their children that they will feed them and not eat, and give all them their time and not take time for themselves to reconnect. But honoring yourself is really about giving to yourself daily so that you can mentally, emotionally, physically connect to this being. Part of that is movement, that's a great celebration of the body and honoring of self. Food, and mindful food that is of a high vibration, that comes from love, and then it comes into the body as love. It's these quiet moments where you can see this vision of the self that is the true self, not with action, but with beingness. The guy that I look into your eyes. And I remember when we first started getting to know each other, it would be at like the North & Co events, and it was you and your wife, and I'd just come in, and I just enjoyed you guys so much, and I'd say things to you like of how I see you or how amazing you are, beautiful. And then I think I remember your wife was like, I like him, but he scares me.
Yeah, sounds about right.
I don't like that he can see me. That's scary.
It is scary.
Yeah. But again, the benefit of honoring yourself and seeing yourself and spending that time with yourself, to not let the world tell you how you are or who you are, or how you're meant to feel. Not even like how you woke up, if you had enough sleep, a little sleep, or if you're feeling good or not feeling good. It's none of those things that define you. It's how you choose to feel, which starts with a simple breath, which starts with feeling actual fingertips and wiggling the toes. We've done plenty of those visualizations.
Yep.
To get a deeper sense of awareness to self. That is honoring, because how often even people listening right now, how they're sitting in their chair, slumped or awkward, and there's no body presence, noises in the room where we tend to just kind of let them just drift away because we have not a bigger presence to all the variables going on in the world around us. So the more you can honor the self, the more connection to self and the world around you, which is what allows me to then in session or casually be able to see so deeply into people, because I've spent so much time with myself. And then that practice then from the inside out allows me to connect with people. So that's roughly what honoring. Now, again, all those little pieces that add on to that would be, sure, you can do like, well, what about yoga? It can be honoring, but it also can be disempowering. If you need something like yoga or workouts or your hikes every morning to feel X,
right,
then something that you would think is this positive thing is not honoring because you're using it to be your answer. And then it becomes a disempowering experience. So if you can shift the mind, you can still hike and be empowered. That's a different experience. So it's not just like, don't do drugs and you're honoring yourself. Like, don't drink. Yeah. Trev, can you please put down that? Like, we don't need to be rolling that right now.
No, let's not roll that one up. Let's not dip that in that. Let's not drink that while we smoke that. Let's definitely not.
Yeah. People would naturally go to that, but it's not about honoring is also not about giving, is about not giving your power away to the world around you, to be happy, to be at peace, to be secure, to be confident, to be in this place of success. It's being that already and then engaging. And if you want to make money, let's make money. I'm a big fan of making money. If you want to exercise, let's exercise. I'm a big fan of that. But as long as none of these things we do are your answer, we're cool. And that's also a part of honoring self. So it's a big question. It could be like the rest of this conversation.
Right.
But in general, I think people will get the idea.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too is in building practices to do that and honor yourself. And whether that is, one of the things to the extent that I don't bastardize it too much, that you like to say is you only get to truly know yourself through truly see, know, and love yourself through visualization. Right. And that's in taking that time, that introspective time. If I'm on the outside and I'm hearing this conversation, I'm like, man, what Al probably sits there for a couple hours a day and just really gets deep. It's not a massive time commitment. It's just like a check-in. And it's like, for me, it's a setting it in the morning. Like, I like to, my morning routine, roll through a visualization, pick from the catalog that we've done and say, yeah, let me just kind of get myself set for the day. And so that 9 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, just sets it for the day. And then whatever I do after that, typically yoga, whatever, just gets me just rolling into the day where now I'm coming correct at the day instead of the day coming at me. And it sets it, but it's 9 minutes, 12 minutes, 10 minutes for me. I'm sure it's different for others. And I'm sure, what is it? What's it for you? What's like a get your head right day looking like for Al Fuentes?
It's really funny because I just had a little bit of this conversation the other day with Nikki, because I'm like, people probably think I'm really serious and I'm very okay, like we're gonna just have an enjoyable day kind of thing. And no, I can do anywhere from 3 to 15 minutes. Very occasionally I'm doing 45 an hour, but those also depend on if I'm setting up for designing this class or working on this project, or so it just depends. But typical 10 minutes, 15 minutes. If time allows, I'll do more. And there's days where I do even less than that, but I'm incorporating it into my day. But most of my time now is spent in kind of a moving meditation. And that doesn't mean like Zen. I am hyper, I'm goofy, I'm always joking around.
Right.
If I'm not talking about, poop and fart
I was
jokes,
just gonna say poop.
Yeah, like then I'm not having fun. So like most of my day is spent just being silly when I'm not sitting and holding space with people. And then it's really funny because when people who know me just as a coach happen to see me out in the wild, or we go to some dinner and then they see this guy who's not serious, they're like, they get like a little shocked because I'm like, I forget you don't know me other than, well, but you're focused when you're, I'm like, don't you want me to be? I mean, we still have fun and we'll joke, but like you are hiring me to hold space for you so you can take yourself where you want to go.
Right.
So that takes a certain level of focus, and you're asking questions. And so I'm just answering you.
Right.
So it's a pretty simple process. But if we don't have these rules and these set forth boundaries, then I'm just going to be me. And that's goofy, fun, silly. There's no framework. And so not just the meditations, it's not this big deal. There's not the seriousness to it.
Mm-hmm.
It is a set it and then move through your day, 3, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes sometimes, and then maybe sometimes 45 or an hour. When I first started being ADD and dyslexic, I mean, I could barely close my eyes for a minute before I had to get out because I felt like I was like trapped.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's not serious. This work's not serious. Life's not serious. So most of the time, that's why I'm talking about poop.
Most of the time I default to poop and then I hold space and then right back to poop. Dude, I think the excuse me, the first time I got exposed to your humor, and I'm sure you remember this, you left me a voicemail and I didn't know it was you. Didn't identify yourself. And it was like some Russian speaking crazy Russian accent saying like, call me back, all this stuff. And I'm like, who is this? So I didn't reply, and you texted me or you called me again. We're like, what, bro? You're not calling me back? And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're like, I left you the message. I was like, were you the Russian? And you're like, yeah. And then I was like, I didn't have that number. You're like, yeah, that's my burner phone. You know?
Yeah. I have like 4 or 5 numbers, and I'll randomly call people and kind of like just mess with them.
I love it.
And it's really great. Some people I just never tell them.
Oh, they still don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's the greatest thing.
Well, dude, and that's the thing. I mean, it's you're helping people to do some very empowering and deep and fun, can be fun work, but while you're in it and holding space, I mean, it's very serious, but it doesn't have to be like that. I mean, the most serious that I get when I'm doing the work is listening to the sessions after the session. And that is, so what people, I guess we can define it a little bit. It's, you meet with Al, it's 90 minutes, you talk. After the session, Al delivers it to you, an audio copy of that, an audio copy of the visualization that you do at the end. And part of the homework is listening to the session. And it's hard because like your own poop is right in front of your face to smell. And it is. And it's like, I remember after our first sessions, I was sitting down to do a viz, and Beth was sitting on the couch, and I was sitting down, I was getting my headphones ready, and I hear her like, and I'm like, I look over at her, and she's got a notepad, she's got her AirPods, and I'm like, hello. I'm like, what are you listening to? She's like, my session with Al. And I'm like, that bad? She's like, who am I? Like, it was like, because you hear the way you're answering these questions, like it's, and you hear your voice, you hear the way you are, and you're like, I don't really want to sound like that, right? I mean, it really does put it in focus. And then I think for me, once I'm over that, and then I allow myself to flow back into the session, and you point this out all the time, you're like, you're going to hear things that you didn't hear the first time. Right. So there are points in the discussion where like you'll say something, you're listening, but you're also like, what you just said made me go down this mental path. Right. And then the next time you listen to it, you're not down that mental path. You actually hear what you said and you're like, oh shit, that's pretty powerful too. So there's power in that. But again, that's not a ton of time. You got to sesh, you listen to it, and then you pick from your catalog of visualizations and go when you need them or when you want to juice up or however you want to work it into your routine. So, the funny thing is I thought it was going to be super woo-woo, like invasive and painful, and I'm going to break myself down and build up, the forged in flame shit. And so, and it's not like that, man. It's super empowering, but it's light and it's bright and it's like, and sometimes, honestly, I'll listen to a viz and I'll go through and I'll be like, what could I use this morning? And I'll pop one on, and I did one the other day. It was our last session. And the tears from like 8 seconds in until it was over, like I might as well have been in a wet t-shirt contest. It was like gross, but it was just like at the end I was like, yeah, like, it just got me, and it like nailed my soul for that day. And the release, it was all positive. It was just like, yes, like I needed to hear these things. I needed to set myself right for this, and I need to just attack the day. And so it's just powerful, and it's not hard. It's fun, man.
And you said something really important. It's some people, they come in, they have this thought that it is dredging through their past, and there's got to be this kind of past life regression even, or the woo stuff. No, again, there's so many stories out there. They're all different, and everyone's grown up different. But the guaranteed thing is our childhood, for whatever reason or whatever story, has shaped how we're programmed today. Now, whatever we want to pick from that says, oh, well, this is this thought pattern today, just here's some of the reasons why, but that's not a big deal because it just is what it is. But do you like that thought pattern? No. Do you want to change it? Yeah. Okay, we'll make sure that's in the visualization. No big deal. Like, okay, good? Yeah, we're good. All right, what's the next thing? And it's just kind of like moving along in a really fun way. And then when people do feel bad about themselves or heavy in this problem, I'm like, yo, and then I'll tell them a story like back in Nam when I shit myself.
Well, I stepped on that mine and I shat myself.
Yeah. And that is a real story from one of today's sessions, because they were feeling really bad about not listening. They knew they shouldn't have done this and they did it anyway. I'm like, yeah, that's humanness. 2 years ago, I think it would have been 11 years into my 14 years into my personal development, 12 years into my coaching, so literally coaching for 12 years. And I still find myself ignoring the wisdom and just being human. And it cost me a pair of underwear. And that's kind of true because we were in Nam and I was learning how to scuba dive off the coast. And we were so far out that we had to go to this remote island where to eat, because you can't go back to shore. So we went to this island, and I brought my own food because I was smart. I knew that I'm limited on what I can eat based on just my choice of diet or food choices, not because I have any allergies or anything. So I'm vegan. So I brought my own stuff. I was good. Until I realized how many calories I was burning and how much energy I was using. And then I burned through all that. Like by 10, I was like, it's 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I'm starving again. So I go on the island and I have to eat. And there's rice, there's these veggies. And I've spent a lot of time in Asia. In fact, we lived in Vietnam for 3 months, and it was really a lot of fun. But whenever they tell you, oh yeah, there's nothing in it. It's all good. It's never all good. You can always count on white rice though. But you know what? I just, for whatever reason, I'm like, I don't just want white rice. I was so hungry and I just didn't want to eat a bunch of white rice. So I asked them and they answered me, and I asked like 4 people, literally 4 people, does this have any fish? Does this have any meat? Does this have any anything in it? And they're like, no, it was a clear liquid. So I knew there wasn't dairy in it. They're like, no, all 4 people for sure. So I put my rice in this bowl of just simple like green leaves with the broth. By that night, I had food poisoning.
Just wrecked.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was food poisoning. It was just a reaction because it wasn't what my body was used to.
Right.
And I was nauseous, and I knew going to bed, like a wake owl was cool. He knew how to pucker up.
Yeah.
And he knew.
Could save himself.
Yeah, he could save himself, go to the restroom. Sleep owl, all bets are off. Who knows what sleep owl was going to do? So I wore underwear to bed because I was not going to risk it, because I can't trust sleep owl to do anything. So sure enough, you're just sleeping. You don't know what you're doing. And then the next day I had to go back for my second day of scuba, and I'm like trying to breathe through this thing. I want to throw up. I just had to power through the whole experience. Yeah. And it was a fun mental thing, because to kind of almost go through this different out of body experience, which was really, really cool, especially going underwater with a tank and a respirator. It was pretty fascinating, but I didn't beat myself up. I just thought, you know what, Al, like, this is what happens when you don't honor yourself and listen to your wisdom. And so you chose to honor the human desire, which was fine. This is what happens. Ideally in the future, you choose the path of joy and abundance versus pain and struggle. You get to do that anytime you want. And so since that point, I've never argued against the food, like the intuition of what does or doesn't work for me.
Interesting. That it's so interesting that in our journey, my journey and Beth's journey, we got to the point where we made decisions and we decided to honor ourselves by the food that we ingest. And we worked on this stuff, right? High vibrational foods pass easily through the body. I mean, these little things that just kind of would flow through us. It's like, oh, do I get the side of fries or do I get a side salad? And that voice would pop in. And then all of a sudden that voice became my own. And then there wasn't a voice. I was just making the right decisions, right? And then the weight started just falling off of us. And then, but we were like, listen, if we want to eat a pizza, we're going to eat a pizza. We want to cheat. We want to get extreme. We want to like have that little pop of whatever it is. We're going to do it. And in the beginning, it was like, if we do that, we'd be like, oh, like headache, or you feel kind of gross. And then the more our bodies started getting adapted to that way of life, the more severe the ramifications are for those types of transgressions that you talked about. Like we went out, we had Thai food with friends, and in middle of the night, I think I threw up 6 times. And Beth the next morning was like, you had a rough one. And I was like, well, yeah, I think it's food poisoning. She's like, you had 4 whiskeys and we haven't been drinking much. And I was like, no, I know that kind of feeling, right? I know when I'm like, I had too much to drink. You just know that feeling. I'm like, that was different. And she's like, huh. Then 20 minutes later, she was like, oh. And then she was in the bathroom the entire morning from like, 7:30 to like 1 o'clock. And I called my buddy that we went to dinner with, and I'm like, did you guys get food poisoning too? And he's like, nah, we're good. And it was like, shared plate stuff. And that was the first time the light bulb went off. It was like, oh, our bodies are so used to what we're doing and the honoring way that we're putting food into them that it just they couldn't even handle it. It was like it was a wake up call, and it was cool. It was like, all right, now my body's using good fuel. And it's like, it just seems like it's just finding its new balance.
Sure.
And it's really fun that it literally came that, the weight struggle and the, all of that for years and years, just went away this second we decided that it was time to treat our body as a co-equal to our brains.
Yeah. And it's really interesting too, because the evolution will keep going. It's not a diet. It's not sacrifice.
Right.
It's gifting yourself. Sure, you're not eating that whole plate of fries anymore, but most of our eating is emotional, like almost all of it. I think that's part of the collective human consciousness that's been a part of that process. And we've abandoned eating medicinally. We've abandoned eating to functionally work. But at the end of the day, if saying no to this is actually saying yes to your greater body and greater path and greater desire. And then some people, like my mom, at one point, she kind of looked at me like, you can't handle anything unless it's like this or that. And I'm like, well, think of it this way. If you smoke a cigarette and you've never smoked before, you're going to cough. It's going to be because your body's like, yo, you don't do this. Yeah. What is this thing? I don't like this.
Yeah.
You start smoking enough cigarettes in a row, a couple days, your body's like smart enough. It's not going to cough anymore. That doesn't mean the cigarette's finally good for you. It just literally means that your body's adapted to whatever toxins you put in it. And that could also be 5 drinks a night. Like if I don't drink and I drink 5 drinks in a night, dude, I'm done for like a while.
Yeah.
But if someone who drinks every night, they're like 5 drinks, like I was just getting warmed up when we ended, like that kind of thing. And it doesn't mean that your body is weak and my body is strong because I can do all these things that you are so affected by. It really just means that our bodies, as much as we've beaten them up through food and alcohol, they've just had to deal. But it doesn't make us stronger. It actually, it just makes your body wiser when you don't do those things. And it just will talk to you more. And that's what it did.
And it does. And it's so funny because I was just used to putting whatever I was putting into it. And I didn't realize that like, it was like putting bad fuel in a car. The engine was running rough and I didn't realize it because it was just always running rough. And then when I went in for a tune-up, changed out the spark plug, started putting in, better grade of fuel, then it's running smooth and it's firing the way it should. And there aren't these peaks and valleys and energy and, all this stuff. And then the second I go back and add a little bit of bad fuel, it's like, blah, 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 it starts running rough again. It's like, oh, that's that. And I just didn't even realize there was anything on the back end. But this has really been for us to get in position for me and Beth to get in position where, and it was some proactive decision making to make some changes, but it was like, just, this is the right time, right? We just gotten there with our self-work and all that sort of stuff.
The two hardest things to do, and it's kind of a tie, but I almost think food is greater. The two hardest things to do for us as humans is love ourselves, truly self-love, and eat in a loving and mindful way. Those are the two hardest things. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But I actually will see people start, if depending on which path they choose to kind of go down first, most people who start down that road of the food will stop it and go, it seems like the self-love part will be easier. And then eventually get to the food part. But I feel like for a lot of people, food is a much more difficult thing to disconnect from the collective human consciousness and emotional existence, because it's so deeply ingrained in us. The food is where the self-love, there's a lot of opposites to it, like of giving away and all the sacrifice and all those things. But to start loving yourself, there's not this crazy thing you have to give up. There's just a different way to think. To use food in a way where you're loving yourself, it feels like you have to give up so much. Belief systems, thought processes, mindsets, the thing that as a kid you used to always eat to make yourself feel whatever it was. And I remember all of these different things for me. Food was always a very emotional thing because I was a wrestler. So I was either starving myself forever or I was indulging on whatever. And then when it came to other things like fast food, and we were poor growing up, so we didn't really get that. Plus we lived in a small town, and so there wasn't even fast food. We'd have to drive somewhere to get it. And so that was a thing of identity for me. And so as we look at all these processes, barbecue, another deep emotional connection for me. And when you start changing, it almost feels like you're losing yourself if you're not equipped. And that's where people feel so depressed when they go on a diet.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they're losing themselves completely. And I don't do diets, nor do I recommend people to go on diets. I just recommend people to honor themselves. And any chance they get with food, does the food come from love? And are you saying I love you to yourself when you eat? And that's the framework you and I have worked on. And but it's tough the other way. And if you don't have any guidance and you just got maybe a trainer who's beautifully intentioned, or a friend, or even just reading through a book or whatever, and you're like, I'm going to do this rigid thing, it feels very depressing.
It feels, if it's negative, it's like Beth put this so beautifully at dinner a couple weeks ago with some friends, and it was like, it used to be that working out, moving my body and exercising and dieting was a punishment. Like that's how Beth viewed it. It was like beating myself, like, oh, look at how gross I am. I need to do this because so it becomes a punishment as opposed to a reward. And she was like, that flip that switched was when it came from self-love, the honoring of oneself and one's body. And then the second that flipped, it started going. And you and I through sessions talked about that too. It's like, let's get some balance. Hey, we're working on the mind. Let's make sure the body is following along and coming along. And it literally it was self-love. And then the way it came, because I did start looking at it like, if I'm from the outside looking in and I see me thinking, man, that guy's got it together. Like, he's got a family, he's running a good business, like seems like an okay guy. Like he's carrying some, like, wonder what's loose in there, right? Because it does. It's like, dude, if I just go home and, slam down 5 beers or whatever, like I never felt like I was indulgent, like give me that bowl of ice cream. I just overindulged whatever it was, the food was generally relatively healthy. Now that I look at it, not necessarily, but like thought it was, but I just ate too much. And that was my whatever, throw the food on top of whatever's bothering me. And then as soon as we took care of, like, for the most part, the things that are, you know, not humming right mentally, then the rest just kind of fell in line. Is that what happened with you? Like, go back to, you know, you talked about 12 years, 14 years. How did you get started on this path, and where were you in life?
Yeah. Danny asked me that question. I go, well, you just got to screw up just about everything. Go through a few divorces, financial restarts, physical destruction, because I did all those things, and then try to put yourself back together. And that's what happened. And it started with a lot of personal work, a lot of spiritual work, a lot of just trying to figure that out for myself. And I had no intention of holding this space for people. I was a loan officer, and I just started figuring that out for myself. And for the first several years, even after 2 years, I started sharing this work with people, and that's kind of when the coaching was birthed. So, and that's when I left being a loan officer and started doing this full time. But for the first few years, I was still working out kinks of physical body, mindset, energy, how I treated myself. And I remember I was working with a lot of pro athletes, and I travel, and I'd work with some of these elite people. One of the trainers, coaches, he's like, you're probably 30 pounds overweight. Wait, what? I was 175 pounds. I was muscular, and it was the weight I always was after college wrestling. And I'm like, no way. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, you've got plenty of weight to lose. But I didn't look fat. Although when I look back at my pictures, like, it was a much different person. And I didn't feel fat. And so I was a little offended. And then I actually had a client, probably within a few months, he's like, yeah, you could lose 10 pounds in your face.
In your face?
That's what he said. You could
just in your face.
He's like, yeah, you could probably lose 10 pounds in your face.
I cared about 10 pounds in your face.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right then. So clearly I'm getting some messages, but I didn't understand any of it at the time. But the truth of the matter is I walk around now at about 145, 150. So these guys weren't wrong.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to get there because of the same practices. The things I share with people is the stuff I learned. This isn't some book I read. This isn't some cool new technique or some way. Like, for me, it was trying to unlink the emotional thing to food. It was trying to unlink the ideology of what I believe my body was. Because as an athlete and a competitive wrestler all the way through college, and knowing my body so well in certain ways, I would have put money that my natural weight was 175, and it just wasn't. But all the things I was doing and eating and the behaviors, even my training, all inflammation. And then emotionally, I'm still angry. I'm still working through relationship stuff and heavy and carrying burdens and all the other things. And so as I went through this process, I'd get hits, little what I would call downloads or little thoughts of wisdom, whatever that you want to call those things, just ideas, if you will. You'd be like, yeah, man, just think about loving yourself through food. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And then I'd work on what that meant. And then I'd kind of break it down for myself. So again, all of this stuff is just real life practice. And then when I'd start sharing this with clients and I'd start developing a mental construct that was how I learned with them, and they're like, that was amazing. I literally could just be a weight loss coach, if you will, if I ever wanted to specialize, and like never run out of people to work with.
Right.
Because the power in this work, just in that area, and the way you can love yourself through all these different variables of how to honor yourself through your body. Wrestling, same thing. Like, it was like, if it wasn't hard, it wasn't worth it.
Right.
My body was a piece of shit, and I was going to make it something. Like, that was what my mind.
I'm going to make you fit this weight class and do the thing.
All those things. Yeah. Plus, then, if I wasn't feeling the suffering or the pain, I didn't think I was pushed. My body was weak, and I needed to push it to be strong. I had it all wrong, but that's general society, and there was nothing wrong with that. But I had all these thoughts based on as an athlete. And then when I learned that, dude, your body knows way more than you could ever figure out. It's way more powerful, way more wise. And then you look at examples of people lifting cars off of like another person or whatever else. It's the superhuman strength. Our bodies have the capacity for so much more than our mind could ever comprehend. So why don't we let go of just telling everybody to shut up and do what I say? And why don't we develop a partnership? Let's not work out because we're not enough. Let's work out to celebrate our body, which is what we've talked about. And as I started doing that, I remember I couldn't run because I had a broken back and fully disintegrated L5-S1 and all this nerve damage and stuff like that. And then my shoulders were a wreck. And I remember getting these ideas, downloads, messages, and I started going, okay, what would that mean to me? How do I work on that? How do I incorporate that? And I remember sitting on a palm tree. This is just off of like 32nd where the canal goes, right there.
Like Stanford, 32nd.
Something like that. And then I remember sitting there going, okay, body, I am going to completely let go. I'm not going to ask anything from you. I'm not going to try to get you anywhere. I want to just play with you today. Let's just go for a run. And I'm going to let you lead the way. And I'm just going to listen. And the whole time I ran, I just said, I'm light. I'm happy. I'm free. I trust you. I'm light. I'm happy. I'm free. I literally said that. And it gets me emotional thinking about it because it was such a big moment for me. And I ran and I just kept checking in. Body, you good? And my body felt good. So I kept running. I ended up running a total of like 3 miles. Now, if I'd have ran a mile and then by that night, I was wrecked. My body was just going crazy. The next day, I'm struggling to move.
Paying the price.
I ran 3 miles, felt nothing. Next day, woke up, felt nothing, which was impossible, except for the fact that I didn't try to do this, nor was I beating myself up. So I'm like, you want to do it again? Yeah. I think I ran for 7 days in a row on an average of 2 to 5 miles and felt 0 repercussions in the entire time. And that was that. And again, emotional because it was an aha moment. And this is my life.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something I had preached and then finally figured out. I wasn't sharing this stuff with people because that wasn't where I was at in my journey yet. So I lived this and I'm like, this is a big deal. And not just for me.
Yeah.
But the universe has been like that. So everything I share with people is all stuff on my journey. And I'm not just telling you what I read or what I think is a good idea. This is my life. And so I just share it with people through these constructs. And then what's happened is because of how many people I work with and all that, now I'm getting these huge downloads for people and I'm stealing their wisdom because it's not my life anymore. That's their life. And I'm like, I want that because that's a beautiful thing. I'm going to take that for my life too. And so I'm learning from now it's kind of become this much bigger thing than my story. But those are some fundamental ones and big ones for me.
It's huge.
And so to see you today and like, I haven't seen you in a while in person. So it's like, I'm like, you look amazing. I just know what that's meant for me personally and what I was able to do. And now from that day forward, I do not punish my body. I don't hammer myself. I don't push. I just let my body go. And what I found and what pretty much everybody finds is their body, when they let go and give their body the reins, their body will do more than they thought they could have done themselves. And so, or push themselves to do. And so it's just amazing. And your body has done that for you.
Man, that's it. It's been an amazing journey and it's been so fun to be a part of. And it's been so fun to and knowing your story. And I hadn't heard that last one before, but I love the fact that what you do is teach us and encourage us to take your experiences and what you've learned and go, instead of, like you said, like reading it in a book and saying, well, listen, I think if you try this technique that Dr. So-and-so said or whatever, that it may work. It's just like, I ran for 7 days straight from a dude that couldn't run and it was fine. And here's how I did it. And then we get it in our psyche and then go, I mean, it's so powerful that it's come from your life experience and how you decided to start making changes and how those changes started to flow and feel and go. And then to be able to pick up and without being like, dude, what I love, I mean, there's so many things that I love about you, but like one of the things that I admire is how not fucking preachy you are. You know what I mean? Like, dude, you were in a position where because of those wisdoms, because you've opened yourself up to receiving that, because you've gone through this stuff and experienced the things you do. If you wanted to, you could be bully pulpit up there with a microphone preaching to the people that work with you, but you don't. It's conversational. It's just like this. Like me hearing that story was making me think about how I can apply that to my life, and about how I have to. Is it like, listen to your body? What does it want to do? It needs this right now. Okay, I'm gonna go stretch. I'm gonna go do some yoga. Or like, Beth getting out the other day and being like, I'm gonna run on the canal with Marty. Like, her body wanted to run and she ran, but she didn't do it in a punishing way. She did it in like, who wants to get out and kind of, frolic, right? And it's just so cool, man. I'm so honored that you were here today, and that you took time from your world to come in here and to share with me, and to share with the people to watch and listen. I so hope that the people know that getting going with this stuff isn't heavy. It's fun. It's light. Man, I love you so much. Thank you for coming in. If people want to check you out further, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, there's two places. Instagram at the.alfuentes, and that's just because Alfuentes was taken. The.alfuentes on Instagram. I really like interacting on there. That's where I'll post most of my stuff. But my website has some really cool free content on there, some really cool visualizations. There's even a COVID visualization. Anyone who would just want to get started on their own, they can do that. I'm not here to sell myself. There's plenty of avenues. As long as you find somebody who's going to hold a space to empower you to own your own journey versus them be your answer, you found someone really great. But if you want to go online, the reason why I like to refer to my work is because I know it's designed to put you in the driver's seat of your own life. And it's got some of the science behind how we tap into theta and delta frequencies, how we connect to our body. And so there's various types of visualizations, a reset viz, flowing through your day viz, a COVID viz. There's some stuff
couples
going.
Viz.
Yeah, there's a couples viz on there. There's some fun stuff on there, and that couples viz is my personal one. So it's not like some of that stuff is personal that I've just decided to share with people. No email you need to put in or enter. You just go download this stuff, make it your own, have some fun.
I love it. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you sharing your journey with me as someone who works with you, for sharing your journey with Beth, for sharing your journey with our children.
Yeah.
And for allowing us to come to you as who we are and to be accepted, and for you holding the space. And thank you for coming in and holding the space for me today, and for those folks out there in Cyberland who are joining. So thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Happy to shower for you today, brother.
Yeah, I love it. I appreciate you doing that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Al Fuentes on the What's Halperning podcast. We'll see you in about a month or so. Thanks so much.